Hey, 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 welcome back to this channel, ARMY and loyal K-pop fans. You know, there are certain moments in the K-pop world that make you stop, take a deep breath, and say, oh my god, he's really that incredible. And today, we are going to talk about one of those most heart-stopping moments. Picture this, a senior artist, a legendary vocalist with years of experience in the Korean music industry, standing before millions of viewers and boldly calling out one name. A name you've probably heard many times before. A name that had already become a legend before its story was even finished being written. Park Jimin. And the person who said it? None other than Hyun, one of the most respected vocalists at Big Hit Entertainment, a senior who had already felt every high and low this industry has to offer. What exactly did he reveal about Jimin? Why did his words make fans all over the world cry, scream, and flood social media with an overwhelming sense of pride? Watch this video all the way through, because this is not just another piece of news. This is a sincere confession from someone who truly witnessed, up close and personal, just how hard Jimin works. Before we get into the heart of the story, let's get to know Hyun a little better, because many of you, especially those who are newer to the K-pop world, may not be very familiar with his name. Hyun is a solo singer signed under Big Hit Entertainment, the same label as BTS. He is known for having an extraordinarily deep voice, soulful, emotionally rich, and capable of giving anyone chills from just a single line of a song. In a K-pop world overflowing with young faces and massive groups, Hyun is one of the rare few who built his entire reputation purely on the strength of his voice and his musicality. He is not the typical idol who relies on visuals or fan service. He is a true musician. And because he shares a label with BTS, Hyun has a very special kind of access. He watched firsthand how the BTS members practiced, worked, and grew. He was not just a distant observer. He was part of the same ecosystem. On an appearance on the popular music program Yoo Hee-yeol's Sketchbook, Hyun spoke at length about BTS. He praised their dedication, calling them a group that never changed in terms of spirit and hard work, even after achieving extraordinary levels of success. But his highest praise was reserved for one person. On the October 24th broadcast of Radio Star, Hyun sat with the MCs and shared stories about his relationships with the BTS members. When asked which member he felt closest to, he named two people, Jin and Jimin. But when he started talking about Jimin, something shifted. The tone of his voice changed. It no longer felt like a funny story between label friends. It felt like a confession straight from the heart. Hyun said, with unmistakable admiration, Jimin is a lot like me. After he sings, he blames himself a lot, wondering why he wasn't born with a natural talent for it. He's always watching himself in videos and working hard to improve. Read that again. Let it sink in. He's always watching himself in videos and working hard to improve. This is not empty flattery. This is a real, vivid portrait drawn by someone who truly saw it with their own eyes. Hyun was not talking about streaming numbers or trophies. He was talking about what happens behind the scenes, in the quiet practice rooms, after the cameras go dark, in all those moments the public never gets to see. And on that same Radio Star episode, when pressed further about Jimin specifically, Hyun added something that left many fans momentarily speechless. Jimin is constantly practicing to improve himself. Not once, not occasionally, constantly. In an industry where many artists are content to stop once they've reached the top, Jimin has never learned the meaning of the word enough. Now, you might be wondering, is this just sweet talk from a well-meaning senior? Is there real evidence behind these words? The answer, absolutely, and plenty of it. BTS's choreographer Sun Sung-duk, in his interview with 10 Asia, once revealed that Jimin's greatest asset is what he described as a healthy amount of greed. Not greed in any negative sense, but an unstoppable inner drive to keep getting better and better. Sun Sung-duk said, Jimin has a lot of healthy greed, so he practices a lot. Coming from a professional who has worked with hundreds of idols, that kind of acknowledgement is not something small. Producer Jinbo, in an interview with The Deep Cut, called Jimin one of the most hard-working people he had ever met. And he went even further. He said that Jimin's self-discipline and work ethic are, in themselves, his unique talent. Think about that for a moment. In an industry where everyone talks about natural-born ability, an experienced professional is saying that Jimin's hard work is the rarest form of talent there is. At BTS Festa 2018, Jin was asked which member had the biggest influence on him. Without hesitation, Jin answered, "Jimin." Jin said, "I think he is already close to perfect on stage. So it makes me wonder how he can continue to push himself ever so endlessly. He inspires me to practice dancing. Think about just how remarkable that is." Jin, himself a talented artist and one of the senior members of the group, openly admitted that he is inspired by Jimin, not the other way around. At BTS Festa 2016, Suga introduced Jimin as someone who does not quit and praised him as a motivational force for the entire team. Suga said, "Jimin does not know what giving up means. He pours his best into everything he does, and that makes me feel proud. Watching him go fuels my passion as well." And then there is one piece of testimony that fans quote over and over again. During a group interview, a reporter noted that between photo shoots and camera setups, while all the other BTS members relaxed and rested, Jimin was nowhere to be found lounging around. The reporter wrote, "Not once during my interview with them was Jimin relaxed." The members agreed that Jimin is the most hardworking one. Even between sessions, he would occupy an empty room and take on practicing a choreography or a song. This is not media spin. This is a direct, in-person observation from someone who is actually there. To truly understand why Jimin's work ethic is so extraordinary, we need to go back to the very beginning of his story. Park Jimin was born in Busan, a port city in southern Korea. He began studying modern and contemporary dance while still in school. He later gained entry to Korea Arts High School in Seoul, one of the most competitive arts schools in the country. There, he was a top student in his class. But when he joined Big Hit Entertainment and began preparing for his debut with BTS, things were not as easy as they might have seemed from the outside. Jimin himself has openly admitted that he has not always felt confident about his vocal abilities. He felt that his singing talent was not as natural as some of his peers. And instead of giving up or pretending the gap did not exist, he did the one thing he knew how to do: practice harder than anyone else in the room. Hyun, who had once shared that same insecurity, that feeling of not being born with a natural gift for singing, immediately recognized something of himself in Jimin. That is why he said, "Jimin is a lot like me." This was not just a similarity in personality. It was a similarity in journey. Two people who refused to accept their limitations. Two people who chose to work and keep working. And the results? They speak for themselves. Jimin grew into one of the most iconic performers in K-pop history. His dancing is recognized by the global dance community. His voice carries such a distinctive and emotional color that veteran guitarist Jungkook described it as having an extraordinary, unique tone. Billboard Korea has even acknowledged him as a key figure who shaped the legacy of K-pop dance. If there is still any doubt left about Jimin's hard work, let the numbers and the facts do the talking. Trophy, Like Crazy, the lead single from his first solo album, Face, reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Jimin the first Korean solo artist ever to achieve that milestone. Trophy, Jimin's second album, Muse, 2024, debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200, proving that the first time was no accident. Trophy, his single, who became the longest-running #1 by a K-pop soloist in the history of the Billboard Global 200, a record that is yet to be broken. Trophy in Shining Awards Global Poll for Most Popular K-Pop Idols 2024, Jimin claimed #1 for the second consecutive year, with a staggering 361,090 votes. Trophy, The Hollywood Reporter placed Jimin as the only K-pop solo artist on their list of the 25 biggest artists of 2024, alongside names like Beyoncé, Eminem, and Billie Eilish. And the most jaw-dropping part? He achieved all of this while serving in the military. Trophy legendary guitarist Jungkook called him one of the greatest musicians he had ever worked with. Trophy comedian and senior entertainer Kim Suk, in a podcast released in June 2025, said, "Jimin prepared everything he could for the show. That's why they're so successful. They work so hard." trophy Jimin is also known as a quiet philanthropist. Since 2019, he has regularly donated 100 million KRW to education offices across Korea, including a most recent donation in September 2025 to the Love Scholarship Foundation in Jungkook. All done without ceremony, without publicity, without a single camera rolling. This is not just a hardworking idol. This is an extraordinary human being. Of course, when Hyun's words resurfaced and spread across social media, fans all around the world reacted with incredible intensity. On Twitter/X, hashtags related to Jimin exploded with thousands of tweets. ARMY were sharing old clips of Hyun on Radio Star and Sketchbook, and many who were hearing the story for the first time were moved to tears. I already knew Jimin was a hard worker, but hearing it directly from a senior who watched him up close. This is different. This is real, wrote one fan. Hyun didn't have to say this. He could have given a generic answer and moved on, but he chose to speak honestly about Jimin. And that is what made me cry, wrote another. Jimin works hard even when no one is watching. That is what sets him apart. A comment that was retweeted thousands of times. He was in the military, still breaking global records, still on the Hollywood Reporter list, still donating quietly. What kind of person, I asked this? Wrote yet another fan, with every caps lock key they could find. And perhaps the most touching comment of all. I'm not proud because he is perfect. I'm proud because he never stops trying to be. So there you have it. The full story. Hyun, a senior, a true musician, someone who watched it all from just a few feet away, chose to speak. And what he said was not just praise. He gave us a window into who Jimin really is. Not just the Jimin who performs flawlessly on stage. Not just the Jimin who breaks record after record, but the Jimin who blames himself after singing because he wants to be better. The Jimin who replays his own videos at midnight looking for what he can fix. The Jimin who practices in an empty room while everyone else is resting. In a world full of highlights and filters, where everyone shows their best version, Jimin is a reminder that behind every single one of those perfect moments, there are thousands of hours of invisible work. And maybe that is the most important message in all of this, not just about Jimin, but for every single one of us. Success does not come to those who wait for talent to bloom on its own. It comes to those who wake up every day, walk into the practice room, and say, I wasn't good enough today, but I will be better tomorrow. Park Jimin has proven it. Hyun has witnessed it, and the world has recognized it. If this video touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe. Every little bit of support you give this channel means the world. And drop a comment below. Which moment about Jimin surprised you the most today? I genuinely can't wait to read what you all have to say. See you in the next video. Take care, stay golden, just like Jimin. Yellow Heart.